This is Alex Novak. Last summer, 17-year-old Alex Novak was woken up at 6 a.m. when she locked herself in the bathroom after a tall, intimidating man entered her room with the permission of her parents. Per the instruction of the transporter, her parents wrote her a letter, and while sitting on the bathroom floor, this letter slipped under the door. And she read that if she didn't come with this transporter, she wouldn't get a phone, a car, she wouldn't be able to go to friends' houses, she wouldn't be able to play any sports, her parents wouldn't cook any food for her in the future, and they wouldn't be paying for her college. After leaving the safety of her bathroom, the transporter took her in a van headed for the airport. And after a plane ride to Utah and a 3-hour drive into the middle of nowhere, Alex arrived at Invoke at Entrada, a wilderness therapy camp in the state of Utah. Her first impression when she arrived on base camp was the smell of the students. She said they smelled like rotten meat. She would spend the next 10 weeks under the institutional child abuse and neglect with other troubled teens. The troubled teen industry is defined today as a network of behavior modification programs, wilderness therapy camps, and residential treatment centers for children ages 5 to 18. In the United States, right now, there are 10,000 programs like Invoke at Entrada and 200,000 children like Alex in camps all across the country. The troubled teen industry's ineffective treatment structure damages and profits off America's youth due to abusive and uninformed techniques employed by treatment staff. In my speech today, I aim to unveil the mysteries of the troubled teen program in America right now. Firstly, we will look at the industry's cult and historical background. Then, we will look at the manipulation of parents under the guise of helping their child. And after hearing testimony and narrative, we will then look at the legal side of things and the extermination of these programs. And finally, we will look at ours and the government's responsibility to help these children. It is hard after hearing that testimony to not wonder how these programs came to be and how they're still running. Manipulation tactics, unfit living conditions, abuse, and neglect, and the tough love mindset all lead back to Synanon. To give some background, Synanon is a drug rehab program that was created in 1951. They operated under the guise of breaking new initiatives with isolation, humiliation, hard labor, and sleep deprivation. This rehab program quickly turned into a cult, abusing its members into submission. And as Synanon gained more members, more teens fell victim to the drug crisis at the time. So, in 1971, the federal government gave a grant to a Florida organization called The Seed, which used the policies and techniques that Synanon created on teenagers suspected of drug use. 3 years later, Congress did an investigation into The Seed and found that they had been using methods similar to highly refined brainwashing techniques employed by the North Koreans. Synanon had its end in 1991, but its policies and procedures left a lasting impact on the world and therapy programs in general, earning it the title, the father of all United States therapy community programs. Before its closure, Synanon created a teen boot camp in the 80s, which led to the addition of 3 more programs, Daytop, Phoenix House, and CDU, 2 of which are still running today. As these programs grew and years passed, more programs across the country began to open up. But how do these facilities gain access to these children? To answer simply, it's parents. Parents all across the country with teens that they can't seem to get a grip on are submitting their children into programs that will abuse them sexually, physically, and verbally. They will overwork them, they will sleep deprive them, they will starve them. But parents don't truly know where they're sending their children most of the time. Most parents are being conned for profit. One of the most famous programs in the country right now is Trinity Teen Solutions. Trinity charges parents $6,000 a month for one child to attend the program, under the guise of enriching a struggling girl's mind, body, and spirit. Their website presents pictures of lovely smiling girls playing with horses, making flower crowns, hanging out with their friends. But in reality, Trinity abused, violated, terrorized, and forced labor on thousands of teenage girls every year. And with censored contact with parents, they never truly know what their child has gone through till they return home. Aaron Bacon and his parents are another example. Aaron Bacon's parents found that he had been using drugs and had a suspected gang incident, so they sent him to North Star Expeditions, a wilderness therapy camp in Utah. This camp had a $13,900 tuition fee for 2 months of stay, in addition to the transportation fees there and back from the airport. This program was 2 months, and only 1 month into the treatment, Aaron fell ill. And after being sent back into the field multiple times by medical care saying he was just faking it or doing it for attention, his case continued to decline. He was extremely underweight, disoriented, urinating uncontrollably, and had severe stomach pain. And on March 17th, it is recorded that the only substance Bacon had had in 5 days was a can of peaches, a 6-inch raw lizard, and some cooked scorpion. On March 31st, 12 hours after the picture on the left was taken, Aaron collapsed on the trail. And after staff mocked his collapse for multiple minutes, they walked over to his body and they checked for a pulse. Aaron had no pulse, and he was unresponsive. He died before the medical van even reached North Star. According to his autopsy, Aaron had lost 23 pounds since his entrance into the program just a month before. He was severely underweight, his arms and legs were like toothpicks, and his skull was hollowed out. But his knees were grotesquely swollen, and he was bruised from the top of his head to the tip of his toes. 1 from his disorientation from falling over on the trail, and 2 from the clumsy attempts at resuscitation. Over $14,000 for neglect, abuse, and misconduct. And this is just one child's story. This is a brief list of the facilities all across the country that have been reported for abuse. Alpine Academy has abundant reports of physical and sexual abuse, blatant conversion therapy, forced manual labor, and social isolation. Eagle Ranch Academy survivor stated that she suffered through 24/7 psychological torture and dehumanization. In Boca Entrada, a resident was placed on run watch, which meant she lost certain privileges at camp, one being able to wear her pants at night. So when night fell, she was held down by 2 staff members for 20 minutes while they forcibly removed her pants. And then Open Sky Wilderness has 6 children sent to the hospital for frostbite that required an emergency flight to Denver for further treatment. At Birdseye Boys Ranch, Teresa Cope, the program director, sexually abused multiple boys during her time as director. Second Nature has reports of severe medical neglect, solitary confinement, over-medication, and humiliation tactics. Many survivors report that when they got home, they were diagnosed with PTSD because of their treatment. I could go on and on about these facilities and their detrimental impact on children who were already suffering to begin with. Along with 200 other kids like Alex and like Aaron Bacon, we need to help them, and we need to help these parents that are powerless in this process. But you may be thinking, are these not private programs in which parents are legally warding their children to? The government doesn't have much stake in this fight. I am here to tell you that the government should be held liable because of their use of public resources and federal resources to fund these programs. In addition to the tuition payments made by parents, an estimated $23 billion of public funds are poured into these programs to keep them running each year. Over the past few decades, this number has steadily increased. A facility called Sequel had an annual revenue that regularly tops over $200 million. And as of 2017, 90% of their revenue came from Medicaid, Medicare, and approximately 500 other federal, state, and local programs. In addition to the over $20 billion, a number of departments and agencies, including the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, and the Veterans Administration, sanction, fund, and otherwise participate in research on behavior modification without laying out participation standards or guidelines. Over $20 billion and thousands of programs supporting these programs. Resources are being poured into programs that are unsafe, unregulated, and do an ungodly amount of damage. When looking at shutdown and extermination, we have to focus on legality. What is one of the principles at the foundation of this country? Our founding fathers established our constitutional system of government. They based it on their fundamental belief in the sanctity of the individual. In addition, with the rapid proliferation of behavior modification, it is all the more disturbing that few efforts have been made in considering the rights of the individual in this matter. And with the absence of strict controls, American citizens are being abused on American soil. There is no FDA that regulates this, that focuses on each child and makes sure that they are safe during their time there. And with sparse legislation in place, children are being failed by the American government. The state of Utah has the most legislation when it comes to these programs because of the number of them in the state. Under Utah Law Code R-432, physical restraints, including seclusion, shall only be used to protect the patient from injury to himself, to others, or to assist patients in attaining or maintaining optimum levels of physical functioning, and shall not be used for the convenience of staff, for punishment, or for discipline. It is clarified that physical restraints must be applied properly by a trained staff member and ensure the minimum amount of discomfort and maximum of safety, as to not cause injury or the potential for injury. These laws span almost universally across the nation. But these laws do not stop the improper use of restraints. During my interview with Alex Novak, 19-year-old survivor from Invoca Entrada, she described how her 15-year-old student mentor got overwhelmed during her tour of the camp. She stepped a few feet out of bounds of the camp, and she was tackled to the ground by 2 staff members while she screamed and cried about how she couldn't breathe and they needed to get off of her. After the 2 staff members got up, they looked at each other and laughed, and they said, "Guys, remember to lie on the incident report form tomorrow." This instance of restraint does not follow Utah's law code of having a clear defined purpose and does not keep the safety of the child in mind. In addition, from 1970 to present day, out of the 198 reported deaths attributed to the troubled teen industry, 70 were restraint related. Now, the safety of children is the highest order here, and legislation does not maintain this. Dr. Judson Brewer, neuroscientist psychologist, explains that each time we lay down a memory linking a cue with a behavior, our brain starts looking for the cue and its friends. Anything similar to the original cue can trigger a craving. This means that the environment that created an addiction is neurologically fueling it. So these programs do have some merit. They are scientifically backed that removing a child from a triggering environment can be helpful, especially in regards to addiction. But the majority of the programs in the country right now do not have the proper regulations in place to keep these programs running for the safety of children. Now, I know that you are not lawmakers, and that while I encourage you to contact your congressional representative and continue to look into the legal issues of these problems, your impact here with the people around you, the families and the teens that you know, will be much more important. Teens are struggling. The shutdown of society due to COVID-19, the raging trouble in politics right now, and the importance of technology rising, teenagers are being damaged, especially in regards to mental health. The CDC found in a study that suicide was the leading cause of death in 2020, with 45,000 deaths alone in that year. That is 1 death every 11 minutes. And suicide was the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14. Drug use and addiction being one of the leading causes. Teens are struggling to keep up with personal lives, so parents are trying to make these decisions for the assumed safety of their child. They see these perfectly curated program ads, and they see a place where their child can be free, can grow into themselves and get past these issues that they're facing. But their child, and along with the 200,000 other children, they are being abused there. That would be, the 200,000 students would be like taking every kid eligible in the state of Wyoming, ages 7 to 18, and putting them in a facility, and then having an additional 100,000 other slots for children across the nation. Parents, it is your job to educate yourselves, your friends, your siblings, your neighbors. Let them know that this problem is happening because they will face manipulation if they do come across these programs. Educate yourselves for the children all across the country who have died, who have starved, who have hungered, who have been abused in these programs. Parents are often manipulated through fear tactics into believing their child desperately needs this type of facility, and then are manipulated to not believe their child when they say anything bad. If your action in educating one person around you makes them aware of the manipulation they would face at these programs, you would be saving that child's life from a fate like Alex Novak or Aaron Bacon. In addition to educating ourselves, we need to care. The Bible calls us, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, to clothe ourselves with compassion, kindness, gentleness, and patience, and as we have opportunity, to let us do good to all people. We have to rid the bias around mental health issues, substance abuse disorders, and all the other issues teens struggle with. And we need to help parents by increasing awareness that they are not alone in struggling with their child. Starting in 1958 with Synanon and the tough love mindset, children have been used and abused by the people meant to be helping them. With the historical background in frame, we can see that the United States has continued to fail parents and teens. And if we do not take action now, they will continue to be abused and used. The legislation in place does not effectively cover the scope of issues in the camps, and proper prosecution has not been taken on the parts of the people breaking those laws. And with the increase in mental health issues in teenagers today, we need to stay vigilant. And as a community, if we can come together, educate, and support the people around us, we can slowly but surely stop the spread of powerless parents and terrorized teens. Thank you.